You hear government talk about the impact that the Russia-Ukraine war and COVID-19 has contributed to. In fact, the vice president singles out those two, the Russian-Ukraine war and COVID-19, largely responsible for where we are now. Is it really the case from your diagnosis?
I don't think so. What I would say is that the two external factors have made an already bad situation even worse. But the crux of the problem and the factors that have brought us here were already there. I mean, if you go back and you look at the Article 4 consultations report by the fund, we had been warned in 2019 that our borrowing was going at a rate which we were bound to face risks, as they put it, because the credit market was tightening. So we were aware. We were aware of that. We were also aware that we were spending far in excess of the revenue that we were collecting. And yet, we continue to do that. We were aware, we were also aware that there were lots and lots of expenditures which literally were locked in, for which we didn't have any clearly defined revenue to fund them. I mean, the free SHS was a brilliant idea, but it's something we have done in this country before, in the First Republic. And we knew that as the numbers grow, the burden will also grow. So unless you can clearly define a path which takes you to a revenue stream that is going to continue to grow to fund it, then you should be aware that not only too soon you are going to hit a crisis. So for me, it is true that COVID-19, Russia-Ukraine war have created problems for every country around the globe, not only Ghana. Every country around the globe has suffered. But we have got to a stage where our suffering is far in excess because there are other domestic factors that have already made the situation even worse. So, yes, but let me make this point that I have said this before. It's like going to a doctor when you are not feeling well and the diagnosis is wrong, or you failed to tell the doctor your true symptoms. The doctor will probably give you medication that's not going to solve your problem.
True.
So the first thing that we need to do as a country is to be honest with ourselves that we were already on the path towards crisis before these two external factors kicked in. So, because if we don't do that, we won't find a solution. Because if you are blaming COVID-19 and you are blaming Ukraine-Russia war, then it means you can never solve the problems you have. Because you have no control over those two developments.
Indeed.
All you have to do is to go looking for money to pay for whatever you have to do because of those two. But there are many other things that we have control over. And we know it, that we did it. And nobody should tell us why we shouldn't do those, or why we should have done those things. I mean, I must say that the fund was not that rigorous in communicating that. But they are there. If you read the report in 2019, it's very clear.
So you make the point that government should be honest about why we are at this point.
Yes.
If there's no clear admission of government's contribution to the problem that we are facing now.
My point is very clear. I don't think we borrowed after the COVID-19, and the borrowing had taken place before that time. We had got to a stage where the international capital market have concluded that we are unable to service our debt and our interest that will accrue on these debts. And I can't say that if we still had access to the Eurobond market, we won't be where we are. In fact, if you recall, the crisis started the day that the Eurobond market shut its door to Ghana. That was when the crisis actually started. It was not because of COVID-19. it was not because of Russia-Ukraine war, but it was because investor confidence had evaporated and the market has said, we can't lend you any more money because we know you can't pay. So that admission for me is important, because then it takes us back to what should we do so that we don't have to go and borrow money to do the things that we do. And are all the things we are doing actually necessary? So it is important that we diagnose our problems better, more credibly, so that we can then also find the right responses to those problems.
So for you, government is currently faced with a credibility crisis.
Of course. Because otherwise, why are investors refusing to lend to Ghana? They refuse to lend to Ghana simply because they don't believe that we can pay the debt, we can service the debt. And I think government itself accept that that is really the case. That is why, eventually, after many months of refusing the very thought of going to the fund, they eventually accepted to go. Because if nobody is going to lend you money, and they're only waiting for you to get some assurance that when they lend you money, you will pay back, and that is to say to go to the fund, that's why they went there. So indirectly, you have accepted that. So I don't see anything wrong in admitting that maybe we make mistakes. Yeah. Are you sure that Ghanaians are going to be happy suffering for another 6 months or 9 months or 1 year without seeing any, break? They're going to be happy. So I think that government must just do the needful, finish. Even if you won't do it, openly and publicly and on radio and television and with a big speech, begin to behave as if you have accepted that things have gone wrong.
But you're not seeing that behavior now?
Oh, no. I mean, the thing is that, you see, there are a number of things that are important. People read into the way we behave.
That's right.
If I mount a platform as a leader of this country and I said, listen, everything is fine. The next 3 months, everything is going to be okay with you. And I know that every day I see the CD depreciate. Now, you are losing credibility by the day. So there is then a disjoint between where you think you are and where you think you want the people to believe from you and what the people actually believe. And I don't think that is good for anybody and any government. Bring that together very quickly. Let people begin to believe what you say. Because if people continue to disbelieve what you say, that's a major problem. That would be a major problem.
Increasing mistrust for the
yes, it will be, because you see, and don't forget, these things are not heard by Ghanaians only. The creditors hear it. People outside Ghana hear it. Even the fund hears what our government officials say. So why do you want to create an impression that, listen, these guys are here, but they really don't believe that they have to do that? After a year, they are going to go back to their old bad ways. No, you must show them the determination to reverse everything that you did before, to build credibility.
Essentially, we have to change our ways.
You have to change your ways, because you see, we would still need external financing for some. This economy is now over-dependent on debt. Whether we like it or not, that is the reality.
And you describe our borrowing as profligate, wasteful, reckless.
Well, if you borrow knowing very well that you have gone past the point where you can service, what does that mean? You are borrowing. You have gone past the point where you can conveniently service, pay back the debt when it is due, and service the interest. And every time a bond is matured, you have to go to the market and borrow again to come and pay the matured debt plus the interest. What does that mean? I think then that is not good behavior.
You say you pin down our problems to two things: lack of clarity of vision and the lack of leadership with integrity.
Yes.
Those are the two main issues we're confronted with now.
Well, yes. You know, why? Take the countries of the East Asian countries. Each one of them had a very visionary leader. One that interests me most is South Korea, but we don't talk much about South Korea. They had a military leader at the very time when we also started going to the fund. We all virtually went to around 61. And when we went HIPIC, we were all given money by the international community. You know, today South Korea gives support, gives aid, gives grants. If you go to South Korea, the country is not different from Ghana. It took a selfless visionary leaders in Singapore, in Malaysia, in South Korea, in Taiwan, to take 30 years to bring their country from third world to first world. We've been independent for how many years now? 66 years. Twice the time that those countries took. Someone will tell you, oh, but the time was different, and they were supported by America, and all the rest of it. I can tell you that if you have a credible plan, people will invest in your plan. And if you show integrity, and not integrity only in terms of not being corrupt, but integrity of the plan itself. Vision 2020, if you recall, was launched. Well, only 1 year after Vision 2020 was launched, it was abandoned. So there was no integrity in the plan. When this government came, what did they say? Ghana without aid. So Ghana beyond aid. But that means that we are building a country which will be self-sufficient enough to fund our own development on our own. That is it. So why is that 5 years later? So that lacked integrity. You see? So when you are a leader, whether in the private sector or you have to be visionary, and you have to have integrity in all the things you do. But I think in the case of Ghana, we have a different dimension, another dimension which, as a country, again, we should accept and confront. I'm old enough to know that every country, every government in this country, when it leaves office, is accused of corruption. The military regimes, they kicked out civilian government, accusing them of corruption. They themselves accuse themselves of corruption. And every single government. Why is it that we can't have one government that will stand up and say, I want to leave a legacy when I leave office that will have no room for greed and corruption? Why? Is it beyond our people? Is it beyond our politicians? If it is beyond them, then we would never go beyond where we are today. It will come back. Everything we do today. Look, we have got a procurement act, we have a public-private partnership act. Why is it that our government, all these years, always want to borrow money to do things that they can partner the private sector to do? Why? Why should you go and borrow money to construct motorway when the private sector man can take the risk with government and build that road, and not you government go to borrow money? Why can't we do that? And there's more money sitting with the private sector than with government.
Let me ask you this. You asked a very critical question as to why government wants to lead and do what the private sector can do.
Yes.
What's the answer to that? Why do you think government does that?
Well, I mean, if you want my true answer, I would say, what is in there that makes it difficult for governments not to want to do that? Why?
Not to have the private sector.
Precisely.
Is
Why?
it an issue of corruption?
Yes, because it all about how many contracts that we, Ghana, after government goes out of power, do we not then, spread in the newspapers? This is a bogus agreement, the bogus contract, blah, 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 blah. What led to the agreement now suddenly becoming bogus or becoming, corrupt? Because the people who signed the contract, the people who signed the agreement, were they not Ghanaians?
Right.
Were they not, if they were international agreements, were they not approved by Parliament?
Right.
Who sits in the Parliament? Is it the private sector investor? No. So what I'm saying is that greed and corruption in this country is at the base of everything we do. And until we get a government, or we have a government, or this government decides that, listen, I want to leave a legacy that has no reference to corruption, either by people in the administration or by people outside of the administration, but they are linked to the administration in any way. We are going to get anywhere. We will get somewhere if we begin to punish corruption. We don't punish corruption in this country.
We don't punish corruption.
Well, who has gone to jail? Tell me. We have accused many people, right, of having stolen. I mean, we have seen these journalists who have shown, Anas Adas has shown contracts being sold. What happened? Nothing. People go away with the loot. Why? Why is that everybody wants to go into politics? Because that's where the money is. So if you see a politician talking that I am against, or any leader, maybe if any leader says, oh, I don't want corrupt people by me, they probably will not get anybody to follow them.
Really?
Why should they? Because if they are going to borrow money or sell his property, how is he going to make his money back? So we should stop demonetizing our politics.
You say that there's no deterrence to corruption in this country.
I haven't seen any. I've seen many investigations, and I'm sure that
punishment.
No, I'm sure
we're
there
not
are some,
serious with the fight against corruption.
No, because you take countries outside Africa. You don't mess up with government money outside Africa. Take Malaysia. You don't mess up with government money. You'll be in jail, or Singapore. You'll be in jail. And in the past they said, oh, because the civil servants and public servants were not paid well. But we cannot also say today that our politicians are not paid well. Our parliamentarians are paid well. And yet, why would they go and sit down there and approve things that they know they shouldn't approve? So for me, and it's something that nobody talks about in Ghana, definitely no government over the years has criticized itself. So if we can't confront it, then we should forget it. Because the greed and the corruption will eat us and eat our children's children. Because every consideration is about, what do I get out of this myself? That's it. So until we get a group of people, a government, who says, in all we do, like America, Ghana will be at the center. We won't do it if you're not in the interest of Ghana. So Ghana's interest should drive everything we do and not private individual interest. If we don't stop that, then, my God, I can see it.